16,000 blades closed in. Dust choked the air, and at the center of the trap stood one man who was never supposed to leave alive. Julius Caesar, outnumbered, surrounded, cut off from his legions, watched the horizon disappear beneath enemy cavalry. No wars, no reinforcements, no escape. Just 1,000 exhausted men against an army built to erase them from history. This was not one of Caesar's glorious victories. This was the day Rome's greatest general came within inches of annihilation. This was the Battle of Ruspina. North Africa, 46 BC. Rome is tearing itself apart. Caesar has crossed the sea to crush the last defenders of Pompey's cause. But Africa is hostile, its cities uncertain, its armies vast, its terrain merciless. Supplies are scarce, intelligence is unreliable, and Caesar, for once, is blind. What he does not know is that the enemy has been watching him since the moment he landed. The Republican forces, Numidian cavalry, veteran legions, and light infantry, are moving faster than expected. They do not seek a glorious battle. They seek Caesar himself. On a routine foraging march near the town of Ruspina, Caesar walks straight into a killing ground. No trampets, no warning, just dust, hooves, and steel closing in from every direction. History remembers Caesar as unstoppable. Ruspina proves how close that legend came to ending. Caesar marches out with barely 1,000 men, mostly inexperienced recruits and a handful of veteran cohorts. He believes the area is lightly defended. There are no scouts far ahead, no heavy legions in support. The land looks empty. It is not. The horizon does not explode with thunder. It whispers. A thin line of dust rises where the earth meets the sky, faint enough to be dismissed by tired eyes. At first, it looks like scattered riders, Numidian scouts, the kind Caesar has chased and crushed 100 times before. Harassment forces. Bait. Nothing more. The Roman column continues forward, stretched thin, shields slung loosely, minds already calculating campfires and water, not death. Then the dust thickens. The line widens. It does not drift, it advances. What looked like a handful of riders becomes dozens. Then hundreds. The earth begins to tremble, not from weight but from speed. Horses move like insects across the plain, swarming, circling, multiplying. Caesar's veterans squint into the sun, their confidence cracking into something colder. Numidian cavalry do not move like Roman horsemen. They flow, they bend. They do not charge in straight lines, they envelop. And behind them, like a second wave of the sea, come the infantry, light-armed soldiers, fast, barely armored, shields small, spears short, javelins already raised. They run instead of march. They do not form ranks. They spread wide, covering the ground with frightening efficiency, turning open terrain into a trap with no walls. This is not a screen. This is not a raid. This is an army. The realization hits Caesar not as fear, but as clarity. Sharp, immediate, the kind that arrives only when the game is already lost. His force is wrong for this fight. Too small, too heavy, too slow. 1,000 men, veterans though they are, suddenly feel like a single drop of blood in an open wound. The Numidians do not stop to announce themselves. They attack while moving. Javelins cut through the air in hissing arcs, slamming into shields, arms, throats. Horses wheel in, loose volleys, then vanish before a counter-throw can land. Roman formations try to tighten, but the ground works against them. Flat, open, merciless. There is nowhere to anchor. No hill, no forest, no riverbank. Caesar's men attempt to form a defensive square, but the enemy refuses to let them settle. The cavalry feigns retreat, dragging Roman attention outward, while the infantry surges forward, screaming, striking, withdrawing again. It is chaos engineered with precision. This is how Rome dies, not in glory, not in lines, but in exhaustion. The sun climbs higher, baking armor into skin. Sweat blinds eyes. Thirst gnaws at discipline. Orders become harder to hear as the noise grows. Hooves, shouts, the sickening thud of iron into flesh. Every Roman kill costs energy. Every Numidian withdrawal costs nothing. They're being carved apart by movement itself. Caesar rides the line, his cloak a beacon, shouting commands that fight against the wind. He sees it now. The enemy numbers are not thousands. They are endless. Every direction holds motion. Every pause invites death. This is not a battle meant to be won quickly. It is meant to suffocate. A veteran centurion goes down, javelin through the face. Another collapses under a hail of darts, his shield bristling like a corpse of wood and iron. Men begin to fall not in rows, but individually, quietly, swallowed by the swarm. Discipline strains. Instinct whispers the unthinkable, retreat. But retreat from what? There is no single enemy front. There is only pressure. Only now does Caesar understand the full weight of the mistake. He has marched into a killing field designed for Rome's opposite. Heavy infantry against speed, order against fluidity, courage against patience. This was never meant to be a skirmish. This was meant to erase him. The enemy never commits to a charge. That is the cruelty of it. There is no single moment to brace for impact, no wall of bodies to meet with discipline and steel. Instead, they move like predators testing a wounded animal, circling, probing, waiting for fatigue to do what blades cannot. Numidian cavalry sweeps around the Roman column in widening arcs, hooves kicking dust into choking clouds, javelins flashing in the sun before plunging down from every direction at once. They do not stay. They strike, peel away, vanish. Javelins rattle against shields, punch through exposed gaps, bury themselves in thighs, shoulders, necks. Every throw is calculated. Every withdrawal denies retaliation. Roman peel-off fly in frustration, falling short or finding only empty air where riders were a heartbeat earlier. The distance is deliberate, always just beyond reach, always close enough to kill. Caesar orders a defensive ring. The command moves fast, sharp, drilled into muscle memory by years of war. Shields lock. Men pivot inward, backs to each other, forming a tight circle of iron and resolve. From the outside, it looks solid. From within, the truth is uglier. The ring is thin, too thin. 1,000 men stretched across an open plain cannot seal every gap. Every fallen soldier widens the wound. The enemy sees it instantly. Light infantry rushes forward in bursts, darting toward weak points, hurling spears, then slipping back behind the cavalry screen. They fight without fear of contact, because contact is optional. This is not combat as Romans understand it. There is no honor here, no test of strength, only efficiency. Inside the ring, the heat becomes unbearable. Armor turns into a furnace. Shields grow heavier with every minute, arms trembling under the constant impact of missiles. Sweat runs into eyes. Throats burn. The dead begin to pile inward, bodies collapsing at the feet of the living, forcing men to adjust their stance, breaking formation inch by inch. A shield drops. A javelin finds the opening. A man screams, then disappears beneath the press. Caesar watches the circle tighten not by command, but by necessity. Every step inward is survival. Every step inward also means surrendering ground, conceding space to the enemy, allowing them to tighten the noose. He knows this pattern. He has used it himself against others. Now it is being used on him with merciless precision. The cavalry rides closer, not close enough to be caught, but close enough to be seen. Faces flash past, young, confident, almost amused. They know time is on their side. Rome's strength has always been momentum, decisive violence, the shock of discipline. Here, momentum is poison. Every attempt to break out would scatter the formation and invite slaughter. So they endure. Javelins rain down like insects. Some strike shields. Others arc over, falling into the center of the ring, killing men who thought themselves safe. There is no rear line, no reserve. Every soldier is frontline now. A centurion shouts until his voice cracks, trying to keep alignment, trying to keep men from turning their heads, from flinching. Fear spreads not as panic, but as doubt. Silent, corrosive. How long can this last? How many throws before arms fail? How many minutes before thirst becomes madness? The enemy does not rush to finish them. That is the message. You will die when we decide. Caesar feels the weight of command like a blade at his spine. One mistake, one wrong order, and the ring collapses into a massacre remembered only as a footnote. He scans the perimeter, counting gaps, calculating angles, searching desperately for something solid in a battlefield designed to offer nothing. The Romans are still standing, but standing is no longer victory. It is merely delay. The infantry comes next, and that is when the trap tightens. They do not rush as a wall. They advance in pulses, measured, deliberate, cruelly intelligent. Republican foot soldiers surge forward just long enough to provoke a response, then fall back the moment Caesar orders pressure. It looks like weakness. It feels like opportunity. And that illusion costs blood. Every Roman instinct screams to advance. So Caesar does. The ring loosens by necessity, not design. Cohorts edge forward, shields lifting, short swords ready, trying to turn harassment into contact. For a heartbeat, it almost works. Roman steel bites flesh. A few enemy infantry fall. The men shout. Confidence flickers. Then the enemy retreats. Not in panic, not in disorder. They melt backward like smoke, pulling the Romans with them, stretching the formation, thinning the lines. In the moment the distance opens, the cavalry surges in again from the flanks like a tidal wave of hooves and death. Javelins fly. Not one, not 10, hundreds. They punch through shields already splintered from earlier blows. They slide under rims, pierce forearms, bury themselves in ribs. One strikes a horse square in the chest, an animal dragged forward by Roman desperation, and the beast collapses screaming, crushing the legionary beneath it. Blood floods the dust. The ground turns slick. Caesar shouts for restraint. But restraint is hard when men are dying step by step. Each push forward costs another body. Each retreat happens too slowly. The enemy knows exactly how far to fall back, exactly when to turn and strike again. They're teaching the Romans to bleed for every meter of ground, then taking it back without paying the price. The younger soldiers begin to crack. They have marched with Caesar across Gaul, fought tribes and kings, but this is different. There is no enemy line to break, no victory to see forming ahead, only exhaustion and the certainty that every movement brings pain. Panic does not explode, it seeps. A glance over the shoulder, a shield raised too late, a step out of line. That is all it takes. A javelin finds a throat, another buries into a thigh. A man drops screaming, clawing at the shaft protruding from his body. The gap opens. The cavalry notices instantly. They flood the space, striking fast, cutting down the wounded before pulling away again, denying the Romans even the mercy of retaliation. Horses scream as pila finally connect, iron heads punching into muscle and bone. Riders tumble, crushed beneath hooves. For a moment, the Romans cheer. The moment passes. More riders replace the fallen. More missiles rain down. The sky itself feels hostile. Caesar rides along the line, visible, exposed, refusing to hide. Dust coats his armor. His face is hard, controlled, but his mind is racing. He sees what others do not, or refuse to admit. This is not a battle of courage. It is a battle of patience, and patience favors the one who does not bleed. The enemy advances again in waves. Forward, back, forward, back, each time pulling the Romans farther from cohesion, farther from safety, farther from the discipline that has always been their shield. The formation bends like overheated metal, not yet broken, but dangerously close. A centurion falls with a spear through his chest. Another takes command without a word. The dead are left where they fall. There is no time to drag them back, no space to mourn them. The living step over Roman bodies and enemy corpses alike, boots slipping in blood, lungs burning, arms shaking. Panic finally shows its face, not as flight, but as hesitation. Orders are obeyed a second too late. Movements lose precision. Men start watching the cavalry instead of their shields. Fear does what swords have not yet achieved. And somewhere beyond the dust and screams, the enemy senses it. They have not won yet, but Caesar knows the truth settling in his bones. They're learning how to kill Romans without ever standing still. And if this continues, discipline alone will not be enough to save them. Caesar is everywhere at once, or at least he tries to be. He rides the line hard, reckless by necessity, his horse cutting through dust and bodies. He shouts until his voice breaks. He grabs shields with his bare hands, shoves men back into place, locks formations himself when centurions are dead or buried under the wounded. This is no distant general issuing commands from safety. This is a man fighting the collapse with his own body. Hold, he screams. Hold the line. Some do, some can't. Exhaustion has hollowed them out. Arms shake from lifting shields against endless missiles. Legs tremble from standing under the sun, surrounded by enemies who never commit, never stop. Fear has seeped into the ranks like poison in water. Then it happens. On the right flank, the circle buckles. Not all at once. Just a fraction of a second too slow. A cohort shifts to answer pressure that isn't real, and that tiny opening is enough. Numidian cavalry explodes into the gap. Fast and merciless. Javelins already mid-flight before Roman eyes register the breach. Then go down instantly. One legionary takes a spear through the face. Another is dragged from the line by a shield strap and butchered before he hits the ground. Horses crash into the formation, hooves crushing ribs, panic screaming louder than commands. The perfect Roman ring, already stretched to its limit, collapses inward on one side like a snapped bone. The enemy pours in. Suddenly, there are enemies behind the shields. Blades flash at close range. The fight turns desperate and intimate. Short swords stab blindly. Men grapple, slipping in blood, choking on dust. Orders dissolve into raw noise. The Romans are no longer a machine. They are individuals fighting to survive the next heartbeat. Caesar is caught in it. For one terrifying moment, he is almost cut off from his command. He rides straight toward the breach, ignoring shouted warnings, ignoring the fact that enemy riders are closing in on him. A javelin whistles past his head. Another strikes a standard bearer beside him, punching through the man's chest and tearing the eagle's standard downward. The sight is catastrophic. Roman standards dip. Not fall, but dip. And that is almost worse. To a Roman soldier, the standard is the soul of the unit. As long as it stands, Rome stands. As long as it rises above the dust, the legion lives. When it falters, something ancient and terrible stirs in the gut. Men see it. Their faces change. Some surge forward in blind fury, trying to save it. Others freeze, caught between fear and duty. The enemy senses the shock immediately. They press harder, screaming, striking, killing without pause. Caesar reaches the breach just as the fighting threatens to spill completely inward. He dismounts. No hesitation, no ceremony. He seizes a fallen shield, lifts it, and steps directly into the collapsing flank. He shouts names. Centurions, cohorts, anything to anchor the men to order again. His presence hits like a hammer. Soldiers recognize him through the dust, through the blood. They straighten, not because the danger has passed, but because Caesar is there. He physically pushes the standard bearer back upright. The eagle rises again, smeared with blood but visible. That single motion stops the panic from becoming flight. A line reforms around him, rough, uneven but alive. The enemy hesitates, just for a breath. It is enough. Roman discipline claws its way back from the edge. Shields lock again. The breach narrows. Cavalry is forced back by close steel. Bodies pile where moments ago there was only chaos. But the cost is staggering. The ground is littered with the dead and dying. Officers lie where they fell. The men who hold the line now are not the same men who stood there minutes before. They are older, harder, closer to breaking than they will ever admit. Caesar remounts, his armor streaked red, his face carved into stone. The line holds, but only just, and everyone, Roman and enemy alike, knows the truth now. This battle is balanced on a knife's edge. One more collapse like that, and even Caesar may not be able to pull Rome back from the void. The battle changes its shape, but not its cruelty. What follows is not an assault of steel alone, it is an assault on the mind. The enemy understands something essential now. Caesar's men are not breaking because of force. They're breaking because of strain, because of isolation, because of the feeling that the world has closed in and there is no direction left to run. So the psychological war begins. Numidian riders circle closer than before, not to strike, but to mock. They drag Roman bodies behind their horses, letting lifeless heads bounce against the ground. They lift captured shields and helmets, waving them high, laughing, shouting insults in languages the Romans barely understand, but whose meaning is unmistakable. You are surrounded. You are dying here. Rome is far away. Some hold up severed hands, still clutching Roman daggers. Others throw back blood-stained cloaks into the formation. The message is relentless. Resistance is pointless. For the younger soldiers, it is unbearable. They see friends they spoke to hours ago reduced to objects of ridicule. They hear laughter where there should be fear. They realize, fully now, that no relief is coming. No second army is cresting the horizon. This is it. This ring of shields. This dust-choked plain. This slow grinding death. Caesar sees it happening in their eyes, and he knows that if the mind breaks, the body will follow. So he gives an order that borders on madness. He commands the men to fight facing outward on all sides. Not a wedge, not a line, a full defensive circle, shields turned to the horizon in every direction. Every soldier exposed to the idea that there is no rear, no safe direction, no place to retreat. It is a formation taught in theory, whispered about in manuals, rarely attempted, almost never sustained, because it demands something unnatural. It demands that every man accept that danger is everywhere and still stand. The centurions repeat the command, voices hoarse, hands slick with blood. The formation shifts, painfully slow, each movement costing lives. Gaps open and close. Men step over bodies to lock shields again. The circle reforms, imperfect, jagged, but real. Now the Romans are a living island, surrounded by motion, surrounded by noise, surrounded by death. Javelins rain in from all sides. Shields splinter. Arms go numb from constant impact. Men cannot tell where the next attack will come from, only that it will come. There is no rhythm, no pattern, just exhaustion layered on exhaustion. The sun climbs higher. Thirst becomes agony. Sweat mixes with blood until armor feels fused to flesh. Still, the circle holds. Barely. Each soldier now fights two wars at once. One against the enemy pressing in. One against the voice in his head screaming to run, to drop the shield, to end it quickly rather than die slowly on his feet. The enemy presses the spectacle harder. They ride close enough now for faces to be seen, grinning, confident, almost amused. They toss Roman helmets into the air like trophies. They clap. They cheer every time a javelin finds flesh. They want the Romans to feel small. They want Caesar to watch his army unravel piece by piece. But something unexpected happens. The longer the circle holds, the more the taunts lose their edge. Because every insult unanswered by flight becomes proof. Proof that the Romans are still there. Proof that they're not done. Men begin to shout back. Not words, but raw sound. Rage without language. A defiance born not of hope, but of refusal. If they're going to die here, they will not die begging. Caesar rides the inside of the circle again, slower now, measuring, watching. He does not shout as much. He does not need to. The men see him, and they understand. This formation is desperate. It is brutal. It is unsustainable. But for now, it holds. And in a battle that has already gone wrong in every possible way, for now, is the only victory either side can claim. Time stops meaning anything. The sun climbs and hangs above the plain like a judgment that will not move. Its heat presses down on armor, on helmets, on exposed skin already split by salt and blood. The air itself feels hostile, thick with dust kicked up by thousands of hooves, filling mouths and lungs until every breath tastes like earth and death. Hours have passed, though it feels like days. Or minutes. No one can tell anymore. The attacks never truly stop. They surge and fade, like waves breaking against a rock that is slowly cracking. Numidian cavalry rush in close enough to throw, to slash, to test, then peel away before Roman steel can answer. Infantry darts forward, hurls javelins, retreats. Again. There is no final charge, no decisive moment, only erosion. Roman shields are riddled with splinters. Some are so heavy with embedded javelins they can barely be lifted. Arms shake uncontrollably from strain. Legs tremble. Men lock their knees to stay upright. Others simply sink to one knee, still holding formation because falling completely would mean death for everyone beside them. Thirst becomes a torment sharper than pain. Lips crack and bleed. Tongues swell. Saliva disappears. Men lick the inside of their helmets for moisture and find only dust. Water skins were lost early, cut down with their bearers. Now every thought narrows to one simple, animal need: water. Some men stare at the horizon, imagining rivers that are not there. Casualties continue to mount, not in sudden heaps, but in steady, merciless increments. A javelin through a thigh, a spearhead between ribs, a man collapsing not from a wound, but from heat and exhaustion, his body simply giving up. When one falls, another steps forward to fill the gap. When no one can, the circle shrinks. The ground inside the formation becomes slick. Blood pools around Roman boots, turning dust into mud. Bodies lie where they fell, trampled by necessity, shields slipping from limp hands. There is no time to mourn, no time to drag the wounded clear. The living fight, standing among the dead, breathing the metallic stench of their own losses. Caesar watches all of it, not from a place of detachment, but from the center of the storm, riding slowly now, conserving his horse, conserving himself. His face is rigid, eyes scanning the line again and again. He counts unconsciously, men, gaps, distances. He knows the numbers without being told. He knows how many are left, and he knows something worse. This battle cannot be won. Not today, not here, not with these odds. There will be no heroic breakthrough, no sudden collapse of the enemy. The Numidians have no reason to commit. Time itself is their weapon, and it is working perfectly. Every minute bleeds Roman strength. Every hour favors the encirclement. Caesar understands the truth with brutal clarity. This is no longer a fight for victory. It is a fight for survival. So he makes a decision that will define the day. He orders a withdrawal, not a retreat. A withdrawal. The distinction is everything. The command moves quietly through the ranks, past mouth to mouth, centurion to centurion. No horns, no dramatic signal, just controlled movement. Discipline enforced by sheer will. The formation will move backward, slowly, deliberately, one step at a time, without breaking the circle. Shield by shield. Men on the rear edge step back first, planting their feet, locking shields again. Then the sides adjust. Then the front. It is agonizingly slow. Every movement is an invitation to attack. The enemy senses it instantly and presses harder, trying to force panic, trying to turn motion into collapse. But Caesar refuses to allow it. Any man who turns too fast is shoved back into place. Any gap is filled immediately. Command are short now. Brutal. Absolute. There is no argument, no hesitation. Discipline is the last thing the Romans still own, and Caesar will spend it carefully. Men begin to collapse from exhaustion. Some drop where they stand, eyes rolling back, bodies giving out under heat and blood loss. When they fall, they're dragged inward or pushed aside, never allowed to tear the formation open. Others step over them without looking down. Mercy has no place here. The withdrawal continues. Slow, grinding, relentless. Each step away from annihilation costs lives, but it buys time. And time, now, is more valuable than honor, more valuable than ground, more valuable than pride. As the sun begins its slow descent, Caesar's army is still moving, still alive, still refusing to break, not because they believe they will win, but because they refuse to die on anyone else's terms. The encirclement tightens. Enemy cavalry charge closer now, sensing weakness. Roman shields shatter. Blood turns the sand arc. Caesar draws his sword, not to fight, but to be seen. If this line breaks, Rome dies here with him. Then, movement on the distant horizon. Roman standards. Reinforcements. The enemy hesitates, just for a moment, and that moment saves Caesar's life. With iron discipline, the Roman formation presses forward, not chasing, not collapsing, just surviving long enough. The Republican forces disengage, melting back into the plain, their trap incomplete. When the dust settles, the field is littered with Roman dead. Caesar's army still stands, but barely. He has escaped, not through brilliance alone, but through sheer refusal to fall. This was not victory. This was survival carved out of chaos. The Battle of Ruspina is rarely celebrated. There were no triumphal marches, no monuments, no speeches in the forum, just silence and bodies left behind in African sand. But this day matters more than many victories, because at Ruspina, Julius Caesar was not a legend. He was a man, outnumbered, hunted, moments away from extinction. One wrong command, one broken formation, and Rome's future would have ended before it was written. Caesar learned from this near death. He adapted. He returned stronger. And weeks later, Africa would burn under his campaigns. But history should remember this truth. The greatest generals are not defined by their victories alone, but by the days they should have died and didn't.